happening? It is Friday. It's Friday. It's Friday. It's uh, September 11th. It is 9/11. As you can see behind me, I've got the 9/11 memorial, um, and I put a picture up earlier today. I'm gonna see if I can find that picture for y'all real quick. Um, put up a picture. I made a post saying how this is one of those hard days for me. Um, because here it is. Here's the picture. Oh, I'm trying to get the picture up. This is one of those hard days for me. There it is. Because um, it just brings back so many of these memories. You can see there, that I did some time in the military. And I've got to say this before this whole war thing broke out, really had I really had a good time in the military, honestly. Um, um, but then this whole war thing broke out, man, and it wasn't as fun as it used to be. War has a way of doing that to you. You know what I mean? And so those are just different phases in my life that I went through when I was in the military. Just different things, different different time periods in my life when I was in the military. One of those pictures is when I was at Fort Benning, or rather Fort Leonard Wood. The first picture with the two flags there. That's when I was at Fort Benning. I keep saying Fort Benning. That's when I was at Fort Leonard Wood. I went there for basic training. Um, and that was our platoon photo that we took. I went to basic training weighing 175 pounds. And I don't think I came out weighing too much more than that. I don't know the last time I've seen 175 pounds. I couldn't dare imagine being 175 pounds now, man. I wish I weighed 175 pounds at this point. Um, and then the other photo is when I was, each of these again are, milestones in my life. And we're going to talk about this whole remembering 9/11 thing because, I just want to talk about because I think there's some relevance to what happened in 2001 and where we are right now. And we'll discuss that. And I'd like to hear your opinions. But then the other group photo where we're in the green camouflage is when I went to primary leadership development course. I was getting ready to become a non-commissioned officer in the military, in the Army. And so that was one of those prerequisite courses that you had to attend. Um, and so I went there. The bottom picture where I'm in the dress uniform, that's when I was stationed in D.C. I was at I was with the what's known as the Old Guard. That's where the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is, the Army Silent Drill Team. And so I spent some time, I spent 3 years in that, doing a lot of funerals and ceremonies for dignitaries and important people. One of the probably my best duty station, probably the best place I liked. I was young in my 20s in Washington D.C. A funny story when because I left Korea to go to D.C. And when I was getting ready to process out of Korea to go to um, Washington D.C., an older black gentleman, he's doing my paperwork, and I shouldn't say older. He's probably in his 40s. I was in my 20s, so he seemed older at the time. Um, but he looks at my paperwork and he says, "You getting ready to go to D.C.?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm a country boy. I'm from Southwest Georgia, Albany, Georgia. We took trips and we traveled, but now I'm on my own, right?" And he says, "You going to Washington D.C.?" I said, "Yeah." He was like, "Man," he was like, "The ratio of women is 13 to 1. You're gonna have a blast." And let's just say he was not lying. I tried my best not to disappoint that gentleman. Uh, but, but Washington D.C. was probably my best. It's probably my favorite duty station, and also because I like history. So I got to see the Smithsonian, got to visit the Capitol, got to visit all of those places, got to do ceremonies on the White House lawn, at the Washington Monument, at the Lincoln Memorial. Got to do all of that. And then that final picture, that's when we deployed to Iraq. These were some of the guys that were in my unit, and we deployed to Iraq. And that would be my final duty station. And I deployed to Iraq out of out of Fort Benning, Georgia. That would be my final duty station, Fort Benning, Georgia. So, do you remember where you were? Do you remember where you were when 9/11 hit? Do you and probably there are some people who are listening um, that were not even uh, um, that probably were not alive. When I was when I left the military and started working in the secular world, I'm looking at these guys who served in the military, and I'm talking to them about, man, you remember when this hit, and one kid is like, he was like, I was in middle school, and I was like, "What? You were in middle school?" And it just it was funny because I remember distinctly, where I was September 11th, 2001. Um, for me, there are two major events that happened in America's history that I was alive to witness that really stand out in my mind. One was the fact of the space shuttle Challenger. I don't know if any of you listening remember. I was in elementary school, I believe, um, and there was all this hype of these astronauts. One was a teacher. That was some African Americans on the, and they were getting ready to go up into space, and they were getting ready um, to go up on the spaceship Challenger. And we're watching this, and there's all this hype, and I can remember my teacher. That's when they put televisions on those roller carts, and they would push it into the put it into the room, because this is an historic event. So she pushes the television into the room, and she turns on the TV because we're getting ready to watch the space shuttle Challenger go up into space. And when it goes up, there's the explosion, and we saw this on national television, that the space shuttle Challenger blows up. Carlos, are you kidding me? You were a freshman at Jackson State, and not you. Y'all are just this is. There's no way. Are you kidding me? You were a freshman. Oh man, now y'all really trying to make me feel old. I think some of y'all lying. I can believe Maria was like in still trying to figure out how to use the bathroom straight. I could believe that, but you no way. So, so the space shuttle Challenger, that was one. So y'all weren't even alive when the shuttle Challenger blew up. You can watch. They're having a special on Netflix. You can catch it and see it. Man, y'all trying to make me feel so old. Anyway, so that was the first event. The second event would be 9/11, when the terrorists attacked America on its own soil. For only the second time in America's history, America was attacked on its own soil. And so, here it was. And let me say this, man. Shout out to my guy Carlos, who's checked in, served in the Marine Corps, man. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate your service. But September 11th, 2001, at Fort Benning. and I'm on the downhill side of my enlistment because I'm planning to get out of the military in 2002, February 2002. I'm done. September 11th hits, and I'm in um, the motor pool. For those of you that are not members of the who are not members of the military, that's where we hold all of our vehicles. So, we had just finished with our formation. We had gotten accountability of all the soldiers, and we're in the motor pool. And my platoon sergeant, because I was a squad leader, my platoon sergeant comes to me and says, "Sergeant Brown, I need you to get everybody, and y'all need to get account of the soldiers, right?" So, he doesn't say what's going on. He's like, "I got to run over and talk to the first sergeant." Now, I'm not thinking anything really out of the ordinary. I did notice that he was in a bit of a frantic, but I didn't know what the issue was. And what struck me funny was, we had a telephone in our platoon office, and the phone rang, and one of the soldiers answers the phone and says, "Sergeant Brown, it's your mother." I said, "My mother?" I said, "Man, don't play. I ain't got time to be playing games. Hang up the phone." He was like, "No, I'm serious. It's your mother." So, I get on the phone, and sure enough, it's my mother. She was like, "Did you see? Are you watching TV? Do you see what's going on?" I was like, What are you talking about?" She was like, "There are planes that are going into the World Trade Center." Again, now I'm thinking she's watching a movie because I'm in the army. I'm in the military. If the country was being attacked, I would know. Remember, my platoon sergeant just runs and says he's got to talk to the first sergeant. I don't know what's going on. And I was like, "Mom, listen, there are no planes going into the World Trade Center. If there was, I would know." And I said, "Hey, I got to get these soldiers together. I'll call you back." And I'm not putting two and two together because I just could not fathom that somebody would attack America on its soil, especially flying planes into the World Trade Center. So she calls back a second time. She was like, "I'm telling you, there are planes. There's a second one. It just went in." I said, "Mom, I don't know what movie they're watching, but please stop watching it. There are no planes that are flying." She was like, "Do you have a TV near you?" And across, uh, uh, you know, in our same motor pool yard, just across the way, there was the bus driver's office, and I knew that they had a TV in their office. She's like, "Go find a TV and look. I'm telling you, there are planes going into the World Trade Center." So I said, "Okay, I'll go check." So I hung up with her, and the soldiers, they're hearing this conversation, and I was like, "Y'all hold on, I'll be right back." And I run over to the bus driver's um, office, and they've got a television in there. And as soon as I walk in, I'm looking at the TV, and I'm seeing the smoke coming from the World Trade Center. And this is in real time. And I'm thinking, "Oh my goodness, are you kidding me?" And by that time, because I'm stuck now. I can't move, and I can't run back and tell the soldiers, "Listen, we're under attack," because they're frantic, they're young, can't So I'm looking. I was like, "This is crazy." So my platoon sergeant comes back from the first sergeant's office, and he says, "Brown, you guys need to get your Kevlar helmet, your flak vest, go down to the arms room, get your rifles, get your pistols, and y'all gotta man the gates." And that was that was the beginning of, you know, that's how I remember 9/11. I got a call from my mother who, and I just did not believe it because I could not have fathomed that America would have, because as a soldier, I'm all bought into, we're the greatest superpower on the earth, nobody would be foolish enough after, what Japan did with Pearl Harbor. There's no way anybody could be foolish enough to attack America on its soil, and let alone the fact that could get you could hijack two airplanes, and really they hijacked four, but they hijacked two airplanes and ran those into the World Trade Center. And it was crazy because you're watching this, you're watching this happen on television, and I see your comment there, Carlos. Carlos says that's why he went in after that happened. He said he felt the call to serve, and appreciated, man. But you're watching this on live television. I don't know how many of you remember seeing it on television. Maria is 9. You got to read about it in books now, and probably go back and watch some old film. But you can see on, on the television, you can see people that are hanging out of the building. There are people that are watching, the flames come up, and they would rather take their chances of jumping out of these 100-story buildings instead of being consumed by flames. And you're watching people as they're diving out of this building to their death. And you're watching how these towers, who were symbols of New York City, its financial center, their global center. The only thing that probably could have been worse was if they had knocked down the Statue of Liberty. But you know here they were, these towers that were symbols of New York City's strength, New York City's might, and they came crashing down. Um, and here I was now, and so now my concern. So see where I am now. I'm in the Army. I'm on Fort Benning. We have completely shut down all of the base. And if you've ever been to Fort Benning is a city within itself. It is humongous. It covers 3 counties and 2 cities, right? It is humongous. And we have to lock down every gate on that base. And if you are off the base, you cannot come on. And if you're on, you cannot leave, right? So I've got to get my soldiers situated, get them at the checkpoints, because at this point in the country's history, all of the bases are free roaming. You can come on. There's no issues. There's no problems. You can come on with no issue. But now we are locking this thing completely down, and you have to have a like emergency purpose to be on this base, and you've got to have an ID card. You can't just say I'm coming to visit. No, that ain't happening. The other thing that I have to be concerned about is my wife is in the military, and when all of this went down, they struck at like 10 o'clock, and so by the time we got to locking the base down, by the time the word really got out, by the time the word had gotten out, it was like lunchtime. So everybody had left to go to lunch, and I was an MP, so I'm on the base, but my wife had gone to lunch. I also have a daughter who's in childcare on the base, and so what's happening with my wife, what's happening with my daughter. The other thing that I'm concerned about is my in-laws live in New York City. My in-laws lived in Queens, and my wife had a sister who worked, in Manhattan. As a matter of fact, she worked close to the World Trade Center. And so, all of this is going on. We don't know what's happening in New York. And if you remember that time, you can't get a phone call into New York. The lines are busy. Everything is jammed. You can't get a signal on your cell phones. You can't get a landline in. Things are hectic in New York City, and you can't. There's no communication. So I've got all of this stuff on my mind, and I'm trying to figure out what's happening, and and at the same time, I've got to try to lead soldiers and let them know that everything is okay. And so, the question that Maria asked is, so how did you feel after finding out what happened, and did it affect you? And of course, it affected. I'm a soldier. Who do you think is protecting, um, you know, uh, you know, uh, protecting America at that point? Because not only did they send two planes into the World Trade Center, but they sent a plane into the Pentagon. So I want you to see what's happening. There are two planes that go into the World Trade Center, which was which for them symbolized the financial might of America. And mind you, the World Trade Center, the terrorists had tried to take it down a number of times, so it was not anything new for people to try to take down the towers, but nobody ever tried to take down the tower from this, in this fashion. Most people tried to detonate bombs, in the basement, in the garages, under the building, and they couldn't. But they hit it, hit them in the center, hit them, and they imploded. And then they sent a plane that struck the Pentagon. So now they're hitting the military might of America. So now we're really concerned now, because are they targeting soldiers? Are they targeting the military? What is going on? So they fly this plane into the Pentagon to strike at the military might of America, a symbol that we just thought was really impenetrable, that nobody would try to, um, you know, blow up or knock down. Because you've got, your stars, you've got all of your brain power, in the Pentagon. And if you've ever been to DC, the Pentagon does not actually sit within the city of DC. It sits outside, but it's not far from the White House. So, they strike the Pentagon, and then there's this last plane that many people believe was supposed to strike the White House, but it never made it to its destination. The people on the airplane got control of the terrorists, and they crashed it in Pennsylvania, and that was flight 93, if I remember the number correctly. And so it did not make it to its destination, but you know there was a certain anxiety that you're feeling at this time, because you're thinking, the country's at war. Now, understanding that when you join the military, you go under the premise that um, there's always this possibility that you will be engaged in combat, that you'll go to war. But I came in the military in 1995. For all intents and purposes, America was at peace with the world. There was nothing. I remember when I was in DC. Let me see if I can find that picture again. When I was in DC, I had a commander who believed that our next war would be with um, um, China. He was thinking, that's who we would have our next war with. China. That's who would be our biggest threat. He didn't. He never said anything about anybody in the Middle East. And so, I'm there. I'm in D.C. You see, when we're there, we're thinking, that's going to be our. He always thought China was going to be our next biggest enemy. That's where we were going to go to war. But when I go in, you see me at Fort Leonard Wood. I'm there, 1995, for all intents and purposes. America is at peace. I go to PLDC in Fort Knox, Kentucky. America is at peace. I'm in Washington D.C. I'm doing all of these ceremonies. America's at peace. And then I go to Fort Benning, and I'm on the downhill side of my contract, and America is at war. And again, you go into the military with the idea that there's a possibility of going to war, but really, are you going to have to face you know um, are you going to have to face combat? Are you going to have to go into war? You're thinking, no, I'm not going to have to deal with any of that. Just to find yourself, as you can see in that one picture, find yourself in the desert sands of Iraq, fighting off enemies. Um, and it's during this time that we hear names such as Rudy Giuliani, who many people labeled as America's mayor, because he led New York through that time period. Um, you can even go back and hear past conversations that they had with the current president, and how when they had this conversation with him, and these towers are crashing, he's talking about how one of his buildings is now the tallest building in the city. And so you're seeing the formation of certain people. You're seeing the personalities of certain people who now are really mainstays in our government now. And you're thinking to yourselves, how did we get here? Well, if we're honest, we created them during a disaster. We created them during a national tragedy, and now here they are. They are present, and they are causing the national emergency. They are causing the national emergency. They are causing the issue. They are threats to our national security. And my thing is, as we look at how all of this translates, right? One of the things that we often say as it relates to 9/11 is we will never forget, and we won't. And I'm not saying that we should. We won't forget that. But there's another tragedy that's happening in America that nobody should forget. Let me put this in perspective for you. It's been 182 days since Breonna Taylor was killed. 182 days. That's half a year. That's 6 months since she was killed in her home. And still, no one has been charged with her murder. We ought not forget that. George Floyd was killed. They've charged his murderers, but they have not gone to trial. We should not forget. Last night, football, the NFL came back for the first time last week. Came back yesterday for the first time, and here are the Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans. They're on the field. They're doing a show of unity. They're locked arm in arm with each other, and the crowd boos. No flag is involved. The national anthem has played already. Nobody is kneeling, but here are white and black players locked arm in arm to show unity, while the words "end racism" flash on the screen, and they're in both end zones. But yet people are booing, and the question becomes, what is it that you're booing? You're booing because you don't believe that the NFL should have anything to say about black interests. You don't believe that the NFL should have anything to say about the issues that are facing black Americans, not realizing that the majority of the players on the field are African American, but yet you don't want a company who employs majority black athletes to say anything about the racism that is affecting the people who make them the money, I think that's hypocritical, you know. And the question becomes, if you're not booing because the flag is not involved, if you're not booing and the national anthem is not playing, then what is it that you're booing? You're booing the fact that they're having anything to say that will uplift. And so while we're talking this whole time about this idea of, you know, never forget, and we shouldn't, but there are also other tragedies in America that we should not forget. The Jews will not allow you to forget the Holocaust. America will not allow you to forget that we were attacked on our lands at Pearl Harbor. We will not allow people to forget that terrorists struck us on our soil and killed thousands of Americans on 9/11. But my question is, if they won't allow you, why should we forget the tragedies that have struck our community right now? How are we allowing people to make us forget that 190,000 people, nearly 200,000 Americans, have died from COVID, and the government knew how deadly this thing was, but they decided to downplay it? We will never forget. But see, what they are doing is they're trying to distract you from all of the things that you should be concerned about, because they want you to forget. Because when November comes, you'll forget all about that. They want you to forget. The reason that it's been 182 days, 6 months since they have brought Breonna Taylor's killers to justice is because they're hoping that time will make you forget that justice has not been served. They hope that you will forget that her parents still cannot hug her, that she's still been that she still has not been justified in any manner, that nobody has even so much as been arrested and brought to get a statement in the killing of Breonna Taylor. They're hoping you will forget, but they don't want you to forget that all of these Americans lost their lives. But can I tell you, there are the same amount of Americans that died from the Twin Tower crashes is the same amount of Americans that are dying every week from COVID, and nobody is saying anything. Nobody is sounding an alarm. It's all a joke. I saw a picture today of them having a rally in Michigan for 45, and nobody's wearing a mask. Some guy even got on camera and said this is a fake pandemic. That the people that have died is 10,000 people. That the CDC is lying about the numbers that have died. And you mean to tell me that people have lost their relatives to this virus, and you think people are playing games? We will never forget. And right here, Maria, you're dead on it. What about the black lives that have been lost? You think that we are going to allow you to forget what was done to Emmett Till, what was done to Philando Castile, what was done to Tamir Rice, what was done to Khalif Browder, what was done to George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Botham Jean, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X? You think we're going to allow you to make us forget? We will never forget. If you want me as a person who was in uniform, because I have to I have to remind people, that I'm not some person that I'm not some person that's anti-America. I'm not anti-America by any means. I gave everything that they asked me to give in support of this. But at the same time, I cannot allow you to just gloss over the fact that there are people in my community that are dying at the hands of the people that are supposed to protect them. We cannot forget. I went to Iraq to fight for the freedoms of all Americans. I did not go to fight for the freedoms of some. I went to fight for the freedoms of all Americans. And then the supposed commander in chief had the audacity to say, I want y'all to see this. I want y'all to look at these folks. Uh, y'all see those kids that's down there in that photo with me that are in the desert? Suckers and losers because they saw something bigger than themselves and they wanted to serve their nation. So many times when I was in DC and I was doing these funerals, I would hear when they would give the flag to the families, they would say on the behalf of a grateful nation. But can I tell you, the nation has not always been grateful for our service. And I'm not just talking about the people that they claim as the liberal left. Everybody has not always been grateful for our service. That when I came back from Iraq, it was not too long that I was reminded that I was a black man. They see the uniform and it's one thing, but they didn't see who I was in the uniform. I wasn't just and some people say I just want to be a soldier, but I want you to see that I am a black soldier because I don't separate who I am as a black person from what I do. I want you to recognize my blackness because if you recognize my blackness, then there's some hope that you'll recognize my heritage, you'll recognize my past, you'll recognize the stuff that my ancestors had to endure for me to get here. No, we will never forget 9/11 and what they did and how they traumatized America. But I need you to understand that there's a trauma that other Americans are going through every day of the week and is at the hands of people who are supposed to be protecting them. We went on behalf of a nation that said that they were protecting democracy and all the blood, sweat, and tears that we gave in the desert sands of Iraq. I had to see one of my soldiers get shot. I saw the dead bodies in Iraq. I'm seeing the rockets that are going day and night. I'm watching the bullet rounds that are going. Let me share this story with you, and because we're up because this whole idea, excuse me, that we're suckers and losers. And then I hear the same commander in chief says he doesn't have to, he doesn't have to associate with the black experience or it's not his business to be able to identify with the black experience. But he's the commander in chief, and there are black soldiers that are fighting for a country that they believe in that he now sits at the head of. But one day um, we have this mission to go and find enemy forces that were holed up in a village. They were hiding out um, in a village, and when I was in combat, I had a guy that I really trusted. White guy from North Carolina. Um, we were just good friends, man, and we trusted each other because we knew, our tactics were sound. We knew that we took training seriously. So anyway, and we made a pact that day when we got into country. We will never go on a mission without each other. If you go on a mission, brother, I'm with you. If you go, I'm with you, right? And so we get our teams together and we go on this mission, and um, we park our vehicles and we've got to leave two soldiers in the vehicle to um, mount our guns so that they can have overwatch while we go through this neighborhood at night and going down streets in Iraq. It's not like going down streets in America. There are no street lights, right? So it's dark, but we can't turn on flashlights or any lights like that because the people that we're looking for will see us before we see them. So it's about 6 or 7 of us. We're going down this dark alley, And while we're going down this alley, we're passing by homes, and their gates are closed, and they've got those big metal doors that lead into a courtyard and then the house. But all of those doors are closed, and um, out of the corner of my eye, it looks like there's a shadow that's walking across the top of the roofs, because their roofs are not like ours. They're pretty flat, and you can go from roof to roof. And this shadow is moving as we're moving. And one of my soldiers says there's somebody up there that's following us. Now, mind you, we're doing this with the Iraqi police. They're with us. And he's like, somebody is up there. And we're like, no, it's just a shadow. And the soldier's like, no, it's somebody up there. And so, of course, we see this, and we don't know who it is. And so, of course, we all put around in the chamber. And one of my guys can see him because he stopped because we're stopped. And he trains his rifle on him. And the Iraqi police like, no, 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 no. We'll go, we'll go, we'll go, we'll go. So they go up into a house and they grab the guy, they bring him down into the alley. And at this point, he's got an AK-47 in his hand, and they're wrestling with him. It's funny now, and I'm laughing, but he's got his finger on the trigger, and they're wrestling with this guy, and we're all in this alley. This alley is not wide, and so finally, one of my guys takes a rifle and hits him, and he drops the rifle. But we were that close to being shot in that alley. And you're trying to tell me that those black and white soldiers are losers, are suckers for going to fight a war for a country that they thought would appreciate them, especially the black soldiers who would have to come back to an ungrateful nation and treat them worse than than anything on the earth. That once we took off that uniform, once we didn't look like, I look in that picture. You saw me as a thief, as a thug, as a hoodlum, as an animal, as a menace to society. And all the while you're screaming, we will never forget. We're asking the question, have you forgot about us? Have you forgotten about us? You're right, we'll never forget. But we'll also never forget that it has been 182 days since Breonna Taylor's killers have been brought to justice. We'll never forget that you all have tried to justify the murder of George Floyd by bringing up his past record. We will never forget that you all tried to justify the killing of Ahmaud Arbery by labeling him as some thief who was breaking into houses that were under construction. We will never forget that you all saw Tamir Rice playing with a toy gun, and the first thing you thought about was shooting him. We will never forget that you could hear George Floyd, a grown man, crying out for his mama, but yet you continue to apply pressure, 8 minutes of pressure, while he struggled to breathe. We'll never forget that Walter Scott is running away from a police officer right here in Charleston, South Carolina, and a police officer shoots him in the back. We'll never forget that Dylann Roof walked into a church while there were people there for Bible study, sat there, prayed with them, and after the prayer, he shot them in cold blood. And when y'all went to find him, you found him and you stopped him by Burger King. We'll never forget that you got away with the murder of Freddie Gray. We will never forget what you all have failed to do to protect a community of people who are made up of doctors, lawyers, teachers, soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, pediatricians, engineers, business owners. We'll never forget. And while you are helping the country to remember, I need you to understand that there were black people in the World Trade Center that died on that day. There were black people in the Pentagon that died that day. There were black people on those airplanes that got hijacked. I need you to understand that we will never forget how many of the people who look like me have served their country, have become the patriots that you all talk about and that you lift up, but you kept them out of all the benefits, out of all the honors that were due them. No, we'll never forget 9/11. But while we're remembering 9/11, while we are remembering Pearl Harbor, while we are remembering the Holocaust, I need you to remember that there is a segment, there's a demographic of people that are being disenfranchised, that are being marginalized, that are being gerrymandered, redlined, gentrified, whose vote is being suppressed. I need you to remember the genocide that happened in the transatlantic slave trade. I need you to remember that the government had the information about COVID in February and intentionally sat on it. And now 190,000 Americans have died. I need those of you who are listening to me, I need you to remember. And I need you to remember when you go to the ballot box in November. If you don't remember anything else, don't forget to vote, because your vote counts. And America needs you to stand up and cast your ballot for an America that can be at the top of the world again. Hey man, I appreciate y'all. I'm up against the clock. I appreciate y'all for hanging in there with me. Uh, 9/11. It is one of those days that it really does something to me. I appreciate y'all for hanging in there. Thank y'all for listening to me. Um, and I hope that y'all have enjoyed it. Absolutely vote. Vote like your life depends on it, because let me tell you something. It does. Not only does your life depend on it, but the posterity of those who will come behind you depends on it as well. Thank y'all for being with us, and we hope you'll join us. We hope you'll join us next week. God bless y'all.